It's like that doesn't want to work now, does it? Well. All right. Thanks, Greg. All right, we're going to get started here in just a minute. It's almost 12 o'clock. Sure, the mic's on. All right. All right, we got everybody's quiet in the room, so that's great. And to our web audience, thanks for joining via the web as always too. Today's our final user group for December. We call it Best in Show 3 because it's the third year in a row where we've kind of taken what we kind of did the Best in Show. November is always Automation Fair for Rockwell Automation, and not everybody gets to travel. We try to come back and talk about what was maybe some of the highlights of the show, and really kind of a teaser for what's coming in 2019. So a lot of what we'll show today isn't released yet, but will be released in the near future. And you also will see that we're going to do several user groups on some of these new products that we're going to kind of show today too over the next couple of months. So today's kind of a not really meeting on the technical info, but just kind of a little teaser for next year. I took our mug shots for the web audience. Joining me remote is Luis Ramos, our solution architect with Rockwell Automation. He's going to take some of the portion of the presentation today, and I'll do some of it too. Wayne Welk is my name, automation specialist with the Reynolds company here in New Orleans. I always forget to show pictures of the speaker. It kind of helps, at least for the web audience. You get a mental picture of who's talking, right? May not be a good thing, but so already 2018 is near the end, right? It seemed like just Terry, I know you were in the room back in January when we had the great ice storm of New Orleans, and we kicked off our user group season or year for 2018 and, on the same day as the ice storm. So and here it is 12 months later. So welcome 2019, right? So a little bit of a teaser again for what's coming up. We're starting to form the calendar for the user groups here in 2019. So of course, everything is subject to change and dates included. But right now, this is kind of how we're seeing things laying out and compensating for things like Mardi Gras and all those things that gets in the way here in New Orleans. January, probably do a topic on GuardLogix technology. So that's a machine safety topic. New GuardLogix technology that came out a few months ago from Rockwell. February is looking to be kind of a Thin Client update and Thin Manager version 11 update, which Thin Manager version 11 is about to release here in December. We're going to touch briefly today on some of the new Thin Clients that Rockwell is launching. March is Studio 5000 version 32 and Logix update. And you'd say maybe if you've kept up with us here recently, you said, well, you just did a Studio 5000 update back in October for version 31. So version 32 is coming out. So March will be a good time to kind of come back to that topic, and as well as talk about some of the new stuff in Logix. Luis will touch a little bit on that too today, some of the new Logix features that should be coming out soon. In April is kind of a good one. That's going to be another new product, or a solution, I should say, or a product to SIP security. And Luis will definitely touch on this today, kind of set the stage for that and tease it a little bit at the end. So we'll kind of explain that as we get to those slides a little bit further on. So also, that's our user group sessions, right? So user groups are always monthly and lunchtime, and they're meant to be kind of a 1 hour, kind of a quick little intro to some new topics, new technologies, new products. We are looking to do a few deeper dive sessions here locally in 2019. So first off, we kind of have a TBD next to it. Is we're looking at doing a Thin Manager SI SI meaning System Integrator Workshop. So, you know, that's really geared. That's like, I think that's a full day event where Rockwell brings in a lot of equipment, and it's just a hands-on with Thin Manager. So again, we see the Thin clients and the Thin Manager solution really kind of taking off out there in the with our customers. So this is a great opportunity. And if you are a system integrator and you attend this event, I believe you get some kind of, I don't know if certification is the right term, Luis, but there is a, you kind of get an acknowledgement, like a certificate that you've been certified or trained as with Thin Manager, which can help you as a system integrator.
Yeah, we'll be working on what we can provide, but I think part of it is going to be, so you do get the certificate, and then I think you also have access to be able to get some development licenses so that you can kind of like a mini toolkit for Thin Manager.
Okay. Yep. So we don't know the date on this. We're targeting maybe February, but we have to. That's soon, and we don't have all the details worked out. So just kind of keep an eye out on that. But we do have, these are kind of shaping up kind of towards the late spring and into the late summer, and machine safety seminar and cybersecurity seminar. So both of these should be pretty interesting for our customers. Machine safety is a focus that we're going to kind of really hit on this year. You'll see it a little bit today too in some of the slides and the updates. And you know, again, we're talking machine safety, so we're talking maybe, you know, traditional OEM customers, and maybe not necessarily oil and gas. We're not talking process safety here, but there's a lot of it out there that we tend to maybe not notice, or maybe haven't really paid as close of attention to. But we're seeing a lot more interest in machine safety here, even here in the New Orleans area with some of our customers. And then cybersecurity, of course, is always top of mind nowadays, and we'll shape that up a little bit later in the year. And that could tie in nicely with the SIP security release as well. And then, of course, Rockwell events, as always, Tech Ed yearly in June. This year it's in Orlando. And Automation Fair, even though it's a year away, is in Chicago. So, all right, so a little bit of a looking back again at the, you know, kind of best of 2018. And I'll kind of do this internally. You know, I don't always share this with everybody, but we kind of always go back and look at, you know, what was our kind of our best of the best for user group sessions. So so this year, by far, the #1 most attended session that had the most interest was the IntelliCenter MCC networking design we did back in February. We also had the demo van outside, so that kind of helped draw some people in for that. And then that was kind of followed by introduction to variable frequency drives in August. And then the Studio 5000 process control update we just did in October was our third best. So that was kind of how the year shaped up. Power. Anytime we do a power topic, they always seem to get a big draw. So that's always good. And then you know, we kind of have our automation solutions blog as well that we kind of I cater and tend to all year long, and we post a lot of things there. We post new products. We'll post tech support articles. You know, if I get kind of common calls and start to see trends, I'll post, you know, about maybe some of those experiences to share. And surprisingly, we saw the blog site just took off this year with the amount of visitors. And somehow we even though we didn't do any kind of search engine optimization, Google's got us up there pretty high. So we get a lot of international hits too. So without a doubt, these were our top 5 most viewed posts from this year. And they're all pretty much centered around tech support issues. So a common one was static switch LED status indicators. #2 was how to reset a PanelView Plus 6 to factory default. Obviously, a lot of people need to know how to do that for some reason. #3 was Connected Components Workbench version 11 feature packs. That was more of a new product release. And then 4 and 5 are pretty much very identical to each other, or almost the same problem. And by far, I can attest that this was probably my most common call this year was panel view firmware incompatibility, where the new LED backlight and the old logic module, when you put those two together, the old firmware doesn't like the new LED backlight. And this is pretty much refers to the PanelView Plus 6s, right, where you can take the logic module off and change the display out. So for whatever reason, if you're below a certain firmware version and you put that new LED backlight on there, you'll kind of get a couple of things. You might get this fatal error 3B, and you might also get the finger. It's literally a finger with a no on it. So apparently globally, that's a problem that a lot of people face, because those were the most hit upon articles this year. So that was kind of just looking back, and it's kind of cool to see that, you know, at the end of the year. So Automation Fair 2018. Well, in effort of full disclosure, I actually did not go to Automation Fair this year. Luis did, but we are trained enough to talk about what's new and exciting, right? So here's a few pictures from the show. You know, if you've been to Automation Fair, this looks very familiar. The walls, as they call them, with all the products on them. And then probably one of the things that's, you know, been getting to be popular and shown now with the PTC arrangement is the augmented reality stuff, right? So that picture on the right is actually an iPhone or smartphone running augmented reality. So now when you put that up to the machine, it's showing you, you know, details of the machine just by putting the picture up to it. So it's kind of an interesting concept, something, a trend that we're going to see come into the workforce or in the automation space, definitely over the next couple of years. Another picture of that is right here too. So you can kind of see a demo case, and they hold up the iPad, and you kind of get all the details just from the augmented reality part of it. So where that could actually be useful is if the panel's closed, right? You bring your phone up to it, and you can see everything behind it, and you kind of see the status of everything without having to open the panel. So there are some practical uses for it. I think that'll get embraced. Another cool thing, if you've ever been to Automation Fair, is they always highlight, Rockwell has a great partnership with the FIRST program, so they always highlight the robotics teams, and that picture there is of a FIRST Lego League, which is a middle school age group. They also had the high school level robotics teams there too. So first, the real kind of the big, I guess, buzz perhaps was the release of the new Rockwell Automation logo. So kind of a corporate rebranding effort got kicked off with Automation Fair. So if you've been to the website, you'll see the new logo for Rockwell Automation. So they kind of, you know, kept the Allen Bradley octagon, and apparently that's a little throwback to the original Rockwell logo too, the little kind of bent line in there. And they also kind of came with a little bit of a marketing campaign around expanding human possibility, and kind of cool actually, because you know, if you go to Rockwell's YouTube and you see stuff, there's a lot of stuff now around, you know, how the products they make are used in manufacturing everyday goods, right? I think a lot of times we kind of get lost in the, you know, we kind of get lost in the day-to-day grind and don't realize that maybe what we're doing, you know, is helping build something that's impacting someone's life, you know, somewhere else down the line, right? So a lot of times we're oil and gas guys, and we're just pumping, you know, getting stuff out the ground, but that's turned into gas or turned into other petroleum-based products. So, you know, the things that we do as integrators and end users, and even us selling equipment, you know, does impact daily life for lots of people. So kind of a cool approach. The other kind of rebranding was, again, back in June, Rockwell and PTC kind of came together in a, I don't know what the right term there, I guess a partnership. So they kind of came out with the idea now of a FactoryTalk innovation suite powered by PTC. So kind of taking some of those PTC solutions and also some of the Rockwell analytics solutions and kind of bringing this together as a bundled suite. So for instance, we were talking about that augmented reality a minute ago. That's kind of that Vuforia product. And ThingWorx is kind of an IoT solution to kind of help bring a lot of different things together, you know, kind of behind the scenes. And Kepware is probably the most recognized name out of the PTC company. A lot of people use Kepware to kind of be the drivers and, you know, communication bridges between, you know, other devices. And last one is you'll see a little bit of a rebranding on FactoryTalk. So kind of a new look to the logo and in a blue color. So you'll see that kind of start to phase in the FactoryTalk marketing. So with that, I'm going to let Luis talk for a minute on controllers.
Yep. So afternoon, guys and girls. So this one's just a quick overview on the controller portfolio that we currently have. Got a couple of slides in here just to show you some of the things that they showed at the fair. But just as an overview, we do have the Micro870 controllers. Those are akin to kind of like the Micrologix that we currently still have, the 1100 and 1400. Smaller end controllers, usually more standalone machines. So we can go anywhere from 10 points of I/O all the way up to over 200. But it would be more for a standalone type system. And then we get into our main machine and process controllers. That'd be their CompactLogix, ControlLogix. A majority of everything that we have right now is EtherNet based. So what you'll see is we still have the older CompactLogix styles, the L1, L2, L3. So that would be like the L33ER. And we now have the new 5380 style CompactLogix, that little picture in the front, which would be part of our high performance. So when we wanted to get it into dual IPs, fast speed, down to sub-millisecond backplane communication, we'd start going that route. And then from the ControlLogix side of it, that would be the L7 for the 1756 catalog number. And then also in our view of the high performance for ControlLogix, we also have the L8, which is now a quad core controller, all the way up to a 40 meg system with a 1 gig Ethernet connection built into it. So as you guys have seen, we're going to see more and more things move to the 5380 in the newer ControlLogix. We're still waiting for redundancy on the L8. So once that comes to fruition, things would be changing even a lot faster. But right now, even with an L8, we have a lot of process systems and a couple of smaller PX systems that don't require redundancy that we're starting to see. And the last thing on the slide is just our process safety SIS form factor. We can do a SIL2 system with ControlLogix and 1715 IO. You guys have probably seen that in the past. And then when we move up to a SIL3 type system, then we'd be at the advanced platform. So that was on the floor along with everything else on the IA walls. We can move to the next one. So to touch a little bit more on the Micro, so the latest offering that we've seen from the Micro is that Micro870. So if you guys have seen the family, our go-tos are generally the 820 and the 850. The 870 builds upon the 850 and essentially provides you the ability of adding a lot more of I/O. So where the 850 would stop around 130 points of I/O, this guy here can expand up to about 300 points of I/O. That's including the little plug-in modules that you see or expansion, so we can do a mix between analogs, digitals, current, voltage. And the other nice piece here is that it's native communication for Ethernet IP and Modbus TCP IP. So we're able to do both of those. The Micro series ties in with the PanelView 800 series or the PV800 that you've seen. If you've ever used the component class in the past, it's migrated over to the PV800. And I think Wayne has one on the wall, but I'm not entirely sure. So we can go to the next.
I have one back there.
This is the fun one that we've been talking about in the past, and then we stopped talking about it for a while, and then we're talking about it again. As Rockwell, we have what's called a scalable compute kind of strategy. What that affords us is a lot of companies are using the term edge computing, the ability of being able to put a computer at the process level, whether that's inside of the panel or part of the server environment is something that we would look at. One of the things that released this past year that was also on the floor was our compute module that goes in the ControlLogix chassis. It's a Windows 10 or a Linux-based system that goes right inside of a ControlLogix chassis. Coming this month, what we'll see is we'll finally see the release of the CompactLogix 5480. So this is built off the technology of the 5380 that we currently have, but this larger form factor size also includes a CPU built into it. So at first initial release, we'll have this with a Windows 10 platform. It's going to be a 20 meg CompactLogix system. So as you can imagine, it's going to be pretty high up there when it comes to compute power, and it's going to be running a full i7 core processor for the CPU. So you're going to have an independent connection for your Ethernet connection for the CPU side or for the computer, and then also 3 dedicated connections just for the CompactLogix. That's going to allow DLR and native communication up from an upstream to downstream connection. So we'll have a little bit more information on some of the things that we can do in the scalable compute platform, but this is something that was on the floor, and essentially what they were doing on the floor is showing this off running Studio 5000 and FactoryTalk View SC without the need of anything else. It was just running directly on that controller. Okay, we can go on to the next one. And if you guys have any questions or anything pops up, feel free to either chat it in or just ask Wayne, and we can stop midway. Another one that released, and this was part of our innovation zone if you were at the fair, one of the things that you've probably heard from us in the past, so we have FactoryTalk Analytics. Over the past year and a half or so, this has been making a little bit of a splash with customers. We have a couple different flavors of analytics now, both from a kind of a smaller computer system that would sit that we used to call Shelby. So now it's just FactoryTalk Analytics for devices. And then we also had a Project CO that's more of a cloud-based analytics. The other one that you guys might have heard was FactoryTalk Analytics Project Sherlock. So last year at Automation Fair, they introduced it as Project Sherlock. This year, they finally gave it a name. So we'll see this released somewhere in the March-April timeframe. So Project Sherlock has been given an official name of Logix AI. Just really quick, just so you guys, and we'll give you guys a teaser. This is a predictive analytics system that sits in chassis. It's using the compute module as its basis. So it would be a ControlLogix based system to solve your system problems. So it's a system level analytic engine. And one of the big hitting items that I can see that with this is it would be able to create a baseline of your production system or your process and look at the quality of the product or batch that you're doing and see if anything is moving outside of its tolerance range. So one of the things that you would do is it's a learning engine, so they're just similar to what you guys have seen with like Watson and things of that nature. Once it's able to connect via the backplane to your system, you plug it in with the ControlLogix that's running the facility. You would answer a few quick questions. Essentially, all you're doing is defining what your output parameter is for, let's say, the chemical, the production, the item that you're creating. You give it any of the points on the input side that are responsible for and important for that production. And it goes to town and starts learning everything that it needs to. So whether it's humidity, speed, pressure, think of it as a quick loop tuning ability. What that does is that at that point, it's able to create the baseline, figure out what points would take ownership of your output. And as it sees any type of inferences that are different, so if you go outside of your bandwidth items or anything that's going through the tolerance, it would be able to either fix the issues or at least provide an operator connection directly giving you that type of predictive analytics tool. And behind the hood, it's using what's called the physics-based model. So very similar to our options that we have for model predictive control, but this is giving you something that's a faster and realistically a much cheaper solution that's specific to be able to keep your items in tolerance. And then we would pair that with a model predictive control system if we needed to go to a step further. So, and like I said, that's just a teaser. We'll talk about this throughout the year as it starts coming out. And I think at one point we are going to be talking about just FactoryTalk analytics as a whole, since it is a big slew of items, including everything that we're doing with PTC. So, next slide.
Yep.
So a couple items. So Wayne was talking about machine safety. So typically for machine safety, we'd be looking at GuardLogix and also CompactLogix. This allows us to do SIP safety. So in most cases, when we're tying this into drives or safety equipment, this is in turn to be able to protect the individual from any type of safety related. And I like to say that you're basically saving people from losing their fingers. One of the things that came out this past year in 2018 was a CompactLogix 5380 with a SIL2 designation. So that gives us in the machine safety world up to a PLD certification. So in the next year, I think we're currently shooting for about March timeframe, just don't quote me. We will be looking at releasing a SIL3 option. So this will be up to a PLE certification. And one of the things that you'll notice from the picture there is if anybody's seen the 5380 safety PLD version, that right-hand side portion does not exist. So that is going to be kind of like a little safety partner built in to the 5380. But if you guys have anything right now that's currently in machine safety, just let us know. We can send you some information. So let's go to the next. With the advent now there, one of the things that we've talked about and you'll see going forward is when the L8 safety came out, that introduced the ability to, again, being able to do the GuardLogix and ControlLogix side. We are going to start seeing safety not only in the process and the point IO family, but we're going to see it in all of the newer IO platforms that are coming out. And that includes Compact 5000, Flex 5000, and now ControlLogix. So these will be two new modules that are coming out throughout the year, starting in March timeframe. Input modules, output modules, both for discrete safety and also for analog safety. We'll see the discrete ones come in first, and then the analogs later in the year. But these will be red modules that'll sit inside directly into the chassis. So it'll be direct I/O. You can pair that with the L8 GuardLogix system, and then that could also tie into an existing CompactLogix or one of those systems. Okay, next slide.
All right.
So, are you taking this one, or you want me to continue?
You can keep going if you want, Luis. I'll be
For everybody in the room, that was a quick little here you go.
You're doing a good job.
You liar. So what we do from I/O, so a lot of the times most people say that Rockwell provides way too many options when it comes to I/O. I don't necessarily disagree with you, but most of the time what we'll see is everything is fit for purpose. So this is just kind of an overview of everything that you would see on the show floor and everything that would be part of our ANS I/O portfolio. So our bread and butter is still ControlLogix. So we still see everybody kind of going with the 1756. We have about 128 different flavors of I/O, anywhere from analogs, digitals. We have a couple new universal temperature models, so that include RTDs and things of that nature. And like I said, we're now going to start seeing safety built into some of the I/O families there. We have a couple of new isolation heart models that have come out. The new thing that has come out, and we'll talk about it in a little bit, is the Flex 5000. So that would be paired with that high performance architecture. So if we have a CompactLogix 5380 or we have a newer L8 ControlLogix style, we'd be able to pair it with this Flex 5000 or the Compact 5000, which is on the discrete machine side. So those are both our newest IO families that we put in. And those, again, all of those would be at a gig communication style. So we'll talk about those in a little bit. 1715 would be our redundant IO. We pair that for a SIL2 SIS type system with ControlLogix. 1719 is one that we typically kind of, it's like the redheaded stepchild. We forget about talking about that one. When we're looking at intrinsic safety, 1719 would be our go-to. It's a DLR Ethernet IP based system to be able to do class 1, div 2, zone 1 or zone 2 type systems. So the blue signifies that the barriers are built into the IO platform. So we can sit this and tie them in directly to the class 1, div 1 space. So if you guys see anything in that aspect, just let us know. And the other big hitting item there is Dynamics right there in the middle. That's our condition monitoring system. It's an Ethernet-based system, still DLR, up to a SIL2. This is to protect and do preventative analysis on rotating equipment. So in terms of being able to tie in or a competitive aspect to like a Bentley system, we'd be able to use the exact same probes that are there. Rockwell does provide probes itself, or you can use existing ones that are already on the machine. But the idea here is we would tie this in directly to the machine as a remote IO drop instead of having to hardwire everything over to a control room environment. It is Ethernet based, so you can tie it into a CompactLogix or ControlLogix system, or it can be a standalone system. It has about a 30-day buffer on there for any of the information that you would need. So let's go to the next slide. So similar to the 1756 safety side, like as I mentioned, all of the newer IO, so the Compact 5000 and the Flex 5000 will be getting safety variants. The nice thing here is you don't have to buy different adapters. So you can use the exact same adapters and you can mix and match non-safety and safety IO as long as you're not mixing the signals. So what we'll see come March time frame is this will be the 5069 IB. So you get digital safety inputs and outputs in the Compact 5000. And then when we look at Flex 5000, that'll be incorporating our analog safety. This module here, this IO serial for Compact 5000, this is something that came out back in 2018. I think it was mid-year, give or take. But this gives us the ability of being able to tie into ASCII and Modbus RTU. So if we got a serial-based type of system, we can tie that in directly into the chassis without having to use any external gateway product. And then Flex 5000. This is the newer platform. This is kind of, this was all over the floor when it came to Automation Fair. A couple of things just to note here, and I think we've talked about it in the past. Out of the box, it's -40 to 70 C on the temperature range. There is still an XT variant, very similar to the Flex IO, the standard, but the XT in this side of it is only for vibration and when we start looking at conformally coated. So if we're just looking for the temperature, we can do that with its own. It is a 1 gig model, so it gives you the ability of being able to do both PRP, which is that parallel redundancy, and DLR, device level ring. So we'll have that ability. The other really nice thing is that we can go with an SFP model, which gives us the ability of that small form fact plugin that we use for the static switches. We can do fiber connections directly to the IO. So it's using the exact same form factor as the existing Flex, but it is a completely new design. So the big expectation is we no longer have to break any of the little tabs trying to get these guys in and out. And you will see a safety variant on this. Like I said, it'll be for digital and for analog on the Flex 5000. So we'll provide you guys some information on this. And at some point, hopefully within the year, we'll make sure Wayne has a chance to put this on the wall for you guys to see in person. So this is just a little bit more information on the SFP adapters, as I mentioned. So you would either buy The standard RJ45, so those are your standard patch cables, and you can do anywhere from 8 to 16 IO cards, or you can get the SFP, and at that point, you can choose between multi-mode or single mode. It just depends on what SFP module you decide to choose. Okay, next slide.
Here too, Luis, just as we haven't really, the Flex 5000 is pretty new. We hadn't really talked about it, and definitely hadn't seen anybody probably use it yet, but just to understand that the adapter itself depends on the number of IO modules. So there's going to be an 8 IO module adapter and a 16 IO module adapter to spec out ahead of time. And another thing, just to make sure that we all understand is, and Luis had mentioned it there, but to make sure was everybody, it only works with the newer L8, as they call it, family controllers. So Correct. It wouldn't necessarily be the Flex 5000 isn't necessarily a direct replacement for existing Flex IO, unless you're updating your processor too, perhaps. Mm-hmm. I want to make sure.
Yeah, so if we were looking at a standard process system, I would still lead with an L7 and Flex IO. But as you bring us the use cases on your opportunities, I can kind of help you and guide you to see if maybe we can start looking at the newer high performance in a process space environment. The main thing, as Wayne said, if you're using Flex 5000 or even Compact 5000, we'd be looking for either an L8 or a 5380 processor to own it, but you can have a mix and match system. So as long as your IO is owned by the high performance, you can still have an L7 redundant controller in the facility and do producer consumer. All of that works all day long. And here on the slide, here's a couple of the things that'll be coming out for the Flex 5000. This was the first iteration of it. So as you guys know, we'll have a couple of different release schedules on this. So the SFP adapters are out now. And what we'll see come March timeframe is going to be that PRP firmware. And then we'll see some of the discrete safety and the analog safety. And then we'll be looking at releasing HART for Flex 5000 closer to the end of 2019.
Right. If you want, I'll take it from here. I threw Luis a curveball there. I was going to cover those, but he was in he was in the zone there, so I let him keep going.
Slacker.
So the other, so we're starting to see some IO Link stuff. I mean, traditionally, like we're saying before, in our normal oil and gas world, we're probably more the HART guys, right? But we're starting to see IO Link, especially in our OEM, in our machine builders out there, kind of that non-oil and gas space. So there's going to be some updates here, AOP and firmware updates for the IO Link Masters. So currently there are 2 IO Link Masters available from Rockwell. One is actually it's an armor block, as they call it. So it's kind of that M12 type connectors. We actually do have one on the wall back there. I could show you after. And then also the Point IO has a little IO Link adapter. So those are our 2 ways to get IO Link sensors into the Logix controller. But what's also kind of, and actually this is probably a little bit better picture of that. So this is what the IO Link Master looks like. But the IO Link Master is limited to the number of devices directly connected to it. So even though this has 4 ports, this is actually an 8-channel IO Link Master. And then the Point IO is a 4-channel IO Link Master. So about to release here soon is this Armor Block IO. It's going to be an IO Link hub. So the concept here is that we can kind of hub in additional IO Link sensors into the master and bring in more sensors into the system. So that's going to be a nice feature again for our machine builders. So a few slides on visualization. A couple of things to update on out there. One is the PanelView Plus 7 Performance Conformal Coating is a standard product now. So phase 1 was 9 and 12 inch, and then all others will be around the February time frame of next year. So in the past, perhaps if you had to have it conformally coated, that would have been a custom thing or send it off someplace. But this will be a factory standard conformal coating part number. Another thing looks like around the May timeframe is a stainless steel version of the PanelView Plus 7. So this will be really great for, suitable for that food and beverage industry. And you can see some of the standards that it meets there. Food grade silicone gaskets, and also, so again, may not necessarily be what we see a lot, but the stainless steel, there are applications for that. I'm sure it will find some uses for that. And this one's another one that's perhaps, maybe we don't necessarily see this in our normal day-to-day around in this area, but they're going to call this the ArmorView Plus 7. So this is basically a PanelView Plus 7 that is basically put into a, kind of a fully enclosed version of it, shall we say, suitable for on-machine mount or maybe on a yoke mount or something. So, as you kind of see some of the stuff we were talking about here, like the IO link and the armor block, and there's a lot of products that are meant to be just on machine, mounted on machine, and not necessarily in an enclosure. And this will fit that space too. That is a hardwired e-stop that comes in here, and then you can kind of custom configure some push buttons as necessary on it as well.
So just as an FYI, I got to see that one on the floor, and the picture on the slide doesn't really give it any justice. It looks rather impressive in person. I was surprised.
On your phone, yeah, there wasn't. It's one of those things where there's not a whole lot of information about this yet, so it's about the only picture I could find out there. So it's a little bit of a top secret thing still, but it's very close to being released. So I'm sure at some point during the year we'll have a visualization update as well, so that'll definitely be in the mix. So thin clients, real quick. Like we said, February is going to kind of be our thin client month, and we'll definitely go deeper into the hardware and the Thin Manager software piece of it. But there are a couple of thin clients. So Rockwell, I guess somewhere earlier in the year, Rockwell started to release their own versions of thin client hardware. This, of course, is a non-display pictured right now. They also do make a display, a panel mount, integrated display thin client product as well. So what came out just recently is a dual 4K display thin client box. So we see 4K requirements quite a lot, especially in control rooms where they want really high resolution. So this is a dual 4K. And then what's going to come out within a month is a multi 4K display thin client box. So this could be 3 or up to 7 4K video outputs here. So you might say that's a lot, but again, when we see some control rooms, we see the requirements for quad and multi-monitor 4K. So this will be a nice addition to the thin client family or portfolio that Rockwell currently has. And of course, with Rockwell having purchased ACP Thin Manager about 2 years ago now or so, everything, of course, is Thin Manager ready. So literally, you take the thin client out the box, you point it back to the Thin Manager server, and that's basically all you got to do. So this is the whole portfolio, kind of summarizing the whole portfolio. So currently, you have the single display thin client, the first guy on the left. That's just kind of a simple, single display thin client, real easy. Then you have a dual display. And then, of course, the integrated display guys we're talking about. And then the two new guys on the end there are the dual 4K and the multi 4K display. So we got you, kind of covered the whole range, depending on your application and your needs. So jumping off to an Encompass partner briefly, all the Encompass partners are at Automation Fair, of course, and there's lots of things they were showing too, and I kind of just picked this guy as the one we would kind of focus on, because we hadn't really shown this and discussed this yet to our users. This is a product that kind of came out a couple months ago from Stratus, and if you're familiar with Stratus, they make the fault-tolerant servers, and those are typically a 19-inch rack mount, kind of a clean room environment. Totally redundant fault-tolerant server. We sell them a lot where uptime is an absolute requirement. Running all the virtualized images for whatever, Plant PX pass server perhaps, or View SE servers or whatever. So again, if redundancy and uptime is required, that's what we always kind of go with. But Stratus has kind of come out with a kind of a smaller kind of an edge device, the ZTC edge solution, as they're going to call it. So so again, this is not a server. This is not a big old rack mount thing. This is more in line with the traditional smaller, industrial type size, computers you put in an enclosure, and it's got the built-in virtualization already in there. It is hot swappable. It's also got some redundancy features you can connect two together to kind of have that uptime, as well as automate site recovery capabilities. So something pretty cool. So again, fault tolerant server can be a very expensive solution and very large. And if you don't necessarily need to have that size, you can bring it down to this edge size, and still have a lot of built-in redundancy that's needed. And it's totally hypervised and ready to go to run. I think about 3 virtual images. Yeah, up to 3 VMs is about where this thing would kind of its intended performance level. So if you are familiar with faults with the FT server, just a quick little tail of the tape between the two. So again, you're looking at 4 physical cores on the edge device, whereas you can have up to 28 on the FT server. So the FT server comes in 3 sizes, kind of a small, medium, and large. So you can definitely run very large applications on the FT server. I think we'll definitely have Stratus talk at some point during the year too, so it'd be kind of cool to show that guy off a little bit. And with that, I'm going to jump it back to Luis to talk about security and the SIP security stuff.
Yep. So, like Wayne said, this will be a little bit of a teaser. We still have a couple months before this is officially out, and we'll be doing a couple of deeper dive user groups and just overall cybersecurity discussions throughout the year, and not just in New Orleans. We'll be doing a couple different locations. So when we start looking at this, cybersecurity is becoming a big talking point with a lot of customers. One of the things that we traditionally talk about is FactoryTalk security on the software side of it, and then hardening boxes similar to a firewall. So we have our Stratix 5950 and a couple other pieces that we would talk about. So what we're going to see now coming out is the ability of being able to do encryption and also security between individual boxes. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're going to introduce what's called SIP security. So as you guys know, SIP, Common Industrial Protocol, another way of saying that on an Ethernet side is Ethernet IP. So in the Ethernet IP space, we usually have what's called SIP sync, which is the ability of being able to tie and synchronize the clocks on the individual controllers. We have SIP safety, which from a GuardLogix and CompactLogix is what allows us to be able to do like e-stops and kind of safety drives and those connection points. We will also be introducing SIP security. So SIP security will just be part of the package, and it'll be part of the defense in-depth strategy that you would implement, as what we would consider that little picture on the right-hand side. I refer to it as the safety onion or security onion. So a lot of the times what you'll start seeing is when we talk about security or cybersecurity, we're talking about all the different layers that you can do to protect yourself, including from a device level, application level, what you would do at the computer, what you would do at the network, and then also what you would do from a physical standpoint. So if we go to the next slide. What typically happens on a network is you start looking at, so if the little dude in the hoodie there is the bad actor, so if in terms of cybersecurity and we're trying to protect your IP on the controller, there's typically a couple of things that somebody would be able to do. Is go directly and open up the panel, connect directly to your controller. A man-in-the-middle attack would be if you have your controller let's say it's a ControlLogix tied into a FactoryTalk View SE system, and they decide to jump in the middle and connect via, let's say, a switch or some connection in between and start monitoring or even rewriting information as part of that system. And the other kind of solution or issue that we would typically see in a cybersecurity threat is if they're just sitting on the sidelines monitoring data. A lot of the times what we would end up doing is, like I said, if we're looking at FactoryTalk Security, which is a policy-based system on the FactoryTalk system, is we can put security down to the controller level and have you authenticate, but in most cases you have to tie this in with your domain controller and multiple other pieces, or you would be able to put physical security like locks and things of that nature. But a lot of the times, once they're in the controller or you're sending data outside of the controller, there was nothing really to protect yourself with. So if we go to the next slide, what we'll start seeing is the introduction of SIP security. And this is going to be able to incorporate a couple of devices to start off with. And one of the things in the cybersecurity world is the ability of being what's called the CIA triad. So authentication, integrity, and confidentiality of all of your data. So as we introduce SIP security, this allows you to turn things on and off to be able to protect against all three of those items and give you additional layers. So what we'll see in the next slide, if you go ahead and, the first thing that'll come out is we're going to have what's called FactoryTalk Policy Manager. Similar to your FactoryTalk administration console, if you guys have played around with that, this is going to be a piece of software that sits on a server that allows you to model your system. So from a network switch, software, controllers, and create zone, conduits, and device. So in a cybersecurity realm, that would be how you would do an assessment on your system. This would allow you to put together whitelisting and allow you to put trust together between individual devices. So what we would do here is if you wanted to talk and secure communication between one ControlLogix to another, or from a ControlLogix to an engineering workstation, Policy Manager would allow you to visually create that and also create the connections in between. And you would be able to turn different layers of that protection on. So like I said, March timeframe is when we'll start seeing this, and as we get closer, we'll provide some more information. But if you go to the next slide, with the SIP security, we're going to be able to do the authentication, the integrity, the confidentiality, and the products that will be able to do encryption between the individual products would be anything that is loaded with FactoryTalk links. And as you guys are aware, anything that installs like any of our FactoryTalk software platform, including Studio 5000, all have FactoryTalk links as part of their communication packages. The 5380, so the L8 processor, because of the fact that it has a 1 gig Ethernet connection on the front of it, we would be able to do secure communication or encrypted communication directly to that controller. We will see a new adapter module for ControlLogix, so the 1756 EN4TR. So it'll be able to do DLR and it'll also be able to do encryption. So it's something that can be turned on and off. So you can secure your communication on that side of it. And then on the first phase, we're also going to have the PowerFlex 755T and the Kinetics 5700 on the motion side of it. So all of those will be able to support SIP security natively. And then anything that does not support that will be able to do whitelisting via that policy manager. So when we start seeing this, as I said, we'll put some more information together. If you guys have any interest in things now, feel free to reach out to Wayne or myself, and I can send you a lot of fun data on it. But as we get closer, we'll get together and we'll go a little deeper dive so you guys can play around with the software and also see what we can potentially do from an architecture point of view. Next slide. I think that was it for SIP security.
I think that's, oh, yeah, a couple,
Sure. So the last couple of things that we saw, and this is something that came out at the beginning of the, actually mid to late 2018, so I think probably around August timeframe. At Automation Fair, they had this going to show off a couple places. So ControlFLASH Plus, everybody's used to ControlFLASH. If you haven't heard about it, there's a ControlFLASH Plus. You do have to download it, but it is free. So it'll be part of the Studio 5000 platform as far as those tools in place. The main thing here is it allows you to do firmware updates to multiple devices at the same time. So one of the things that usually was the kicker is if you tried to update your EN2T card or your drive, you had to do it one for one. So every single time you had to launch the little window for ControlFLASH and then possibly open up another window and connect to another drive. Now this will allow you to do scheduling, and you can do multiple devices at the same time. And the next slide talks about one of the updates that we're doing in the coming year. So as you start seeing this, we're going to be able to start tying this into PCDC. So if you guys don't know what that acronym means, since Rockwell loves their acronyms, the Product Compatibility and Download Center, so the website on Rockwell's website that allows you to download firmwares, the process library objects, and switch firmware, things of that nature, or even the add-on profiles. One of the things that it allows you to do is do a comparison against the different products from a hardware or software point of view, and lets you know, in most cases, I use this to be able to know what versions of software work with what versions of Windows OSs. If you type in an EN2T, it also gives you what firmware revisions are currently available. So this will now start letting you know and allow you to download the firmware directly from the ControlFLASH Plus and be able to give you an update on which one of your products or which one of your running systems have old firmware. So we'll start seeing more and more of these cycles come in as we get more functionality throughout the year. So if you haven't started using it, I would urge you to go to the PCDC and download the ControlFLASH. Like I said, right now it's currently version 1, and then we'll see 2 might be out. If not, it be out within by January timeframe at the latest.
I think that was the last slide. So just a few little, like I said, just a few little teasers of what we saw, what's new about to come out, things that we thought would be most relevant to our audience, of course. So we had one chance for questions either in the room or online, and if not, we'll wish everybody a happy holidays, and see you in the new year, of course, hopefully.
Merry Christmas, everybody, and hopefully everybody gets to enjoy at least a little bit of a vacation.
Yep, you gotta. Yeah, we're wishing you a Merry Christmas too. So I don't know if you heard that or not.
Appreciate it, guys.
All right. Well, with that, we'll go ahead and shut it down. We'll put 2018 in the books, and look forward to, like I say, everybody having a safe and happy holidays, and see everybody in the new year. So, Luis, thank you for presentation today, and everybody have a good day.
And Wayne, as always, thank you for putting all this together.
All right. We'll see you in the new year too.
Will do. Take care, guys.